Okay, today is September 24th, 2012, and we are interviewing today Wayne Wagner at the Illinois State Library. Wayne, when were you born?
October 13th, 1945.
So how old does that make you?
Be 67 next month.
Congratulations. My name is Deborah Aggart, and I'll be the interviewer. And Wayne, could you state for the record what war and branch of the service you served in?
I was in the United States Air Force and served during the Vietnam War era.
Okay, and what was your rank?
At that time it was sergeant. I think they've changed it since then, but when I got out it was sergeant. 3 stripes.
Okay, and where did you serve, sir?
Went to basic training in Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. From there I went to Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. Then went to Travis Air Force Base in California, and then to Easter Island, and then to Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona, okay. And during your time of service, what was your job or assignment?
I was a communication specialist, basically a teletype operator, and also a radio operator when I was overseas.
Okay, and what was your day like? What was a typical day like for you when you were serving?
In California, it was busy. I worked, we worked 12-hour days usually, 7 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning, and a rotating shift then after that. So we had a lot of shift work because we were manned 24 hours a day, so we had a lot of shift work. And when I left California, it was 12-hour days, 7 to 7.
What did you do during the day?
That one, Vietnam War was at the height right then. We had a lot of messages from Southeast Asia and that area, reporting on the battles and what's happening over there. And we relayed them to other bases and to other posts around the country.
Boy, telecommunications has changed.
This was before satellites and computers.
Internet and everything.
Oh yeah, we had the tapes, punch tapes. This was even before the cards.
Oh my goodness, that's a long time ago. And did you see any combat, sir?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did anyone from your unit go into combat, or was?
In the Air Force, in the part that I was in, you really didn't have a unit that you were associated with.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of them that I worked with that went to Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like all the orders were coming down to Southeast Asia. There was one little group of us, probably half a dozen people, that kind of got there together. We kind of hung around together and ran around off base together. When it got to our little group, we got assigned everywhere else. One of them went to Greenland, one to Turkey, one went to Germany. I went to Easter Island, and I can't remember the other ones. But then right after our little group of people again, they all went back to Southeast Asia. So I fell in a little bitty group that lucked out and didn't have to go.
Right. During your experiences, were you awarded any medals or citations?
Nothing that's outstanding. I don't even remember what they were. No.
Okay.
Nothing. Just normal ones that they give you for serving, marksmanship, I think, or something like that. That's it.
Yeah, a lot of gentlemen got that, or
it's
people in the service. Yeah, kind of standard and everything. Did you share in any battle planning or anything? You were just the communications.
Just communications. I had a top secret crypto clearance, so we just got all the messages in and distributed them to the base commanders and so forth, and then relayed them on to other bases all over.
One of the posters downstairs says, "Don't give out, the movements of the troops and everything too."
Our famous one, and it comes from I think World War II probably, is loose lips sink ships.
I think we have that poster in our collection here at the State Library.
Really?
We have a collection of World War II posters, and that's what those are downstairs.
That was preached to us pretty much.
Yeah, so you were
when I went overseas, it was especially that, because it was a classified mission to Easter Island, which it's a story in itself.
Well, that's a story we need to get into.
More so than California. California was pretty much routine, day after day, messages, relaying.
Would you want to elaborate a little bit on what you did on Easter Island?
The California experience was more associated with the Vietnam conflict that was going at that time, and mainly support for them. Whereas the Easter Island and my tour in Phoenix was more of a Cold War relationship, more or less. I got stuck in Panama Canal for a month because I couldn't find my passport.
Oh, no.
Because when I left California, they just told me, they didn't tell me where I was going. And they didn't tell me I needed a passport. And then I was a civilian clothes assignment also, so they didn't tell me I needed civilian clothes. So just before I left, I got a letter from my sergeant down in Easter Island, and he told me all this stuff. So I went to Chanute, which was close by,
Right.
and they finally figured out where I was going and needed a passport. So they applied for a passport right away. And so I had to go to Panama then and wait for it. Well, find out it was in Albrook Air Force, or Howard Air Force Base, and I was in Albrook where I crossed the canal. And they had a passport and didn't know who it belonged to, and I was sitting over there waiting for mine.
Oh, my.
So I got stuck in Panama for a month.
So what did you do? Were you on a base there?
The Panama was the kind of the base for the Easter Islands. So I was in direct contact with Easter Island, and they had a base in southern South America. So I worked, basically did what I was going to do for the whole year, just in different location.
Waiting for a passport.
Yeah. And I would much rather been, as remote as Easter Island is, I'd have much rather been there than Panama, because Panama was, at that time, the Panamanians hated Americans. You couldn't go downtown. There was really nothing to do. Humidity was terrible. The barracks.
No air conditioning, probably.
No air conditioning. The barracks just had the whole one wall, well, all the way around the barracks was open. All they had on screens. And it was so humid you couldn't leave your shoes. You know, normally you think of a military installation, you should keep your shoes under your bed. You couldn't do that because they'd be moldy in a day or two.
So what'd you do with your shoes?
They get lockers, and you'd hang a light bulb in the locker.
Oh, to keep the humidity down?
Keep the humidity down and
wow.
off your clothes and your shoes.
Hmm.
You get out of bed and you step on a cement floor and you just leave a puddle of water.
Oh my goodness,
Just
that's
everywhere you
very
step,
humid.
so it's really humid.
Very
It's probably the bad time of year, but.
What time of the year were you there?
This would have been in July, August.
Yeah.
And it would rain every day at 1 o'clock, pour down. And the bad part about that is our communications that's supposed to be secure. We were in a B2 shelter, which is just a Quonset tent, small Quonset tent, sitting out in the middle of a parking lot with a yellow ribbon around it, and that was our secure area.
Really?
And we had high-powered radios because we had to talk to Easter Island and Puerto Aires, South America. And so you had these high amplifiers for your radios to get the teletype communications.
Right.
And here you were out in the middle of a parking lot, and water coming down 2 or 3 inches deep, and you're sitting on a wood floor with these amplifiers messing around.
Hopefully you weren't getting electrocuted.
Yeah, right. That was my
too.
concern, because the water was rushing under you through the park, especially on the parking lot. Is
couple inches deep and everything.
Yeah, it just poured down rain. Finally, we got moved to a basement of an old food locker, I think it was, just before I left. But then we flew into Santiago, Chile overnight. We had to land in Lima, Peru for a little while. But flew into Santiago, Chile from Panama, which I think is about an 8-hour flight by C-130 cargo plane. And then from there we flew out to Easter Island. It was, I think, I can't remember for sure if it was the first plane that ever landed on Easter Island.
Really?
They were just building the runway. The first troops that were there, we had 45 was the maximum number we could have on base. So that's why I became a radio operator as well as a teletype operator, because we didn't have room for 2 separate job classifications.
Was that because of the troop deployment and such? They just wanted to limit it to about 45?
No, that's just what Chile allowed.
Oh,
and they're the
okay.
ones that said no military uniforms in their country.
Oh, okay.
And Easter Island was a possession of Chile.
Okay. So shorts and t-shirts every day?
No, just regular street clothes.
Street clothes and everything?
And you had to wear these unfinished leather shoes because the whole island is volcanic ash.
Right.
And they would just cut regular leather shoes to pieces.
Huh.
So you had to wear
specialized shoes?
Yeah, well,
and the
not
Army
special.
Provided those?
No, I had to buy them.
You bought
them?
them?
Well, they gave me the money for civilian clothes allowance. But,
okay. And did you buy them there on Easter Island?
No, there's nothing.
There's nothing
there.
to. Oh, okay.
No,
so
you
you had to write home and have those sent to you?
When I got the letter from my sergeant, he kind of told me what I should get.
What clothing and
Yeah,
such?
Yeah,
Huh.
so I took it with me.
I've walked on volcanic rock
Yeah,
before in
it's-
Hawaii, and it's terrible.
Yeah, if you
It's
wear
just
like
terrible.
leather sole shoes, they'll just tear them
Right.
to pieces.
Right,
So,
right.
But, so they were just building the runway. The first troops arrived by merchant marine ship,
Mm-hmm.
and they offloaded all the equipment and all the buildings. They were all just portable buildings where they just
Structures.
come in, pull the walls, or raise the ceiling, pull the walls out, let the ceiling back down, and that was your house, or
Mhm.
whatever else, everything.
That's how they did your office and your barracks and everything?
All the dining
too?
rooms, they just connect more of them together. Our living area was just one porta camp, what they called, and when they split it in half. We had 2 on one side and 2 on the other side.
Okay. Did you have your own cook?
We had a kitchen, we had a cafeteria.
So the Army, for
Air
the
Force.
45 of you, had your own
Yeah,
cook?
Air
and
Force
such?
had a
Okay.
cook down there.
Did you have a dispensary for if you got ill or anything?
We had a medic and we had a medical officer. The
Okay.
medical officer, his specialty was heart. He was a heart doctor.
Well,
and
you were
and
safe there.
and the medic would run around throwing fake hand grenades all the time. So you
Just
hope
give
you
them a
never got
workout.
sick.
Yeah.
They
yeah.
did have freezers for if somebody passed
Yeah.
away. They had a freezer there in the warehouse because we only had supply ships. Airplanes come in twice a month.
Okay.
And at the time I got there, they were starting to run out of food because
Oh.
before all they could do was parachute stuff in, and they
Okay.
couldn't carry very much because they had to have enough fuel to get out there and
go
back, which was like 2,200 miles, I think, something like that. So they couldn't load heavy because they had to have enough fuel to make it back. So they
Interesting.
parachute all the mail and the supplies.
So that's how they got the mail? Is that
Yeah.
how you got your mail, or did it come by ship at the time you were there?
No, when I got there was airplane, but
Still the airplane?
they started landing then.
Okay.
So they devised a way, they had a big freezer on this airplane to bring us food in at that time. So
Excellent.
every 2 weeks we'd get food and mail.
Okay.
The airplane would land in the afternoon. You got your mail, so they gave you that afternoon and evening and night to respond. The plane took off the next morning.
Okay.
So if you didn't have your mail in by the next morning when it took off, 2 weeks.
2 more
Yeah,
weeks?
2 more weeks.
Yeah.
Uh,
Not like instant
No,
access now or
no,
anything,
no
too?
satellites. So we did have a spare radio
Mhm.
that we used, and we would contact the ham radio operators in the ham radio system,
Okay.
and they would patch you through to your house.
Excellent.
So I did get a chance to talk.
Well,
every
and who
once in a
did you
while.
talk to? Were you married at the
No,
time?
I was not married. It was just
Okay.
my mom and dad
Okay. And did they have to go, where were they living at the time?
in Buckley.
In Buckley?
So
Okay.
the
So where did
person
they go?
the person I contacted was in Chicago that I
Okay.
went through. Then he would, I think my mom and dad had to call him,
Okay.
or he would call and collect or something. So
Mhm.
he was not out the money for the long distance charge, but somehow I can't remember how that works.
And they patched him through
And then
so they
you
could
had
talk
to
to
say,
him? Well,
you
that's
got done with
nice.
your overseas, say over and over, so you know when to
Yeah,
throw the
to
switch
talk.
to reverse the conversation.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
did that several times, and we had contacts throughout the states for different people, and then we had a time set up that
Okay.
that ham radio operator would be on that frequency at that particular time, and so you would make your contacts at that particular
Okay.
time.
Did your mom and dad like that
Yeah.
they could talk
Yeah.
to you? I think that would have been
Funny
really
part
nice.
is we had at that time we still had party lines out in the
Oh,
country.
yeah? Everybody heard you,
And-
huh?
and, yeah. And my grandma was on our line.
Oh, well, that was
And,
nice.
so she knew what time I called, so she'd always just pick up the phone.
And listen?
And listen.
Well, that's
She never
reassuring,
said
too.
anything.
Well, that's
but,
reassuring. And are you a grandparent?
Yes.
So you
yes,
know
yeah,
how
yeah,
important that
yeah,
would be
yeah,
too
yeah,
and everything too. I think that's really nice.
Yeah.
So how did you get along with your fellow officers and soldiers when you were out there? You were kind
Real
of
nice.
isolated and
Yeah, it's
everything?
isolated, so you didn't really have that many. Everybody had their job to do. Like I say, most people had, they had to do 2 jobs because of the
Right.
shortage of space allotments. But that's typical. You had your officers out down there, but very seldom. In my part of it, there was actually 2 detachments down there. One was with the communications, which I think we had nine of us in that group. We just had a sergeant that was in charge of us. We had no officers.
Mhm.
But then our support one the outfit that we supported, they had officers in their group.
Mhm.
But we had our office was up on top of the volcano. The island is made up of three major volcanoes, is
Okay.
what created the island.
Uh-huh.
So you got a triangle type of three major ones. They had some smaller volcanoes in between, but
It wasn't active, was it?
no.
Were any of the other ones active?
No, nothing was
Okay.
active down there at that time.
Okay.
So we were up on kind of pretty much the top of the one volcano.
Hmm.
Um,
Good view up there?
Yeah, with water.
Just some water? Now,
The
Easter
closest-
Island, it doesn't have any islands close
No.
to it or anything?
Closest inhabited island to Easter Island is 1,100 miles to the west, which is the
Okay.
Pitcairn Islands.
Okay.
Be like Tahiti, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it is officially the most isolated, remote inhabited island in the world.
How many inhabitants on the island? Did you know?
There was
at the
probably
time?
only a couple hundred.
Couple hundred,
Mhm.
okay.
No stores. Their store was supplied by the Chilean government, which
Government.
is basically empty all the whole time. No
Oh.
electricity. We had our own standby generators running 24 hours a day on base.
Okay,
Part of the town had electricity for part of an evening.
some of the time.
At midnight, it would all go off,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of the part never had electricity at all.
Hmm.
Now, while I was down there, we were building an electric plant that would supply the island with electricity.
island.
Now, we had an electric line that ran from our base around the end of the runway. Every time a plane would come in, it had a hinge pin on it. We'd fold the light pole down.
Yeah,
the plane
so they
would
could
hit it.
land?
And our company clerk, his job before an airplane landed was to go and get all the cows and horses off the runway.
Oh, boy.
So the plane wouldn't hit them.
Oh, boy.
And
Oh.
I was in a communications center up on top of the volcano. It had no windows whatsoever, and I was the control tower.
No windows and you were the control
Yeah.
tower. Would you go
We just-
outside?
no, we just,
talked them in?
We just talked to the plane and say, you know where you're at? They say, yeah. So you're on your own.
You can see the runway, land.
Yeah, so you see it run land. They were still constructing the runway, but C-130 can land on a shorter runway than a
Mhm.
normal plane.
Mm-hmm.
Now, right after that, then the Chilean government, LAN Chile, started flying in there also.
Okay.
Because a lot of the natives were Polynesian descent.
Mhm.
So the plane would come from Chile, land on Easter Island, and some of the natives would then get on it and go over to Tahiti.
Okay.
And supposedly visit some of their relatives if they knew
Right.
who they were.
Better than a long boat ride.
Yeah. But Easter Island Easter Island's got a lot of history in it.
Yeah,
its own,
sounds like
but that was their main descent.
Did you feel any pressure or stress and anxiety in your job and everything?
Not down there, because
There was no threat to
very
you?
little going on.
Mhm.
So it was pretty laid back and pretty easy.
Just doing the communications and everything back and forth every day?
We lose communication. We lose it every night.
Every day? Oh,
Every
okay.
night. So you just, sit and wait till the next morning. You had your frequencies you're supposed to be on at a certain time in the morning, and you
Right,
hopefully get them back.
right.
So you try different ones, but you'd lose contact with the world every night,
Hmm.
just because of weather and distance.
Yeah, yeah, it's
I
a
mean,
lot
our
of
antenna was
distance.
huge, but just with the distance and the weather at
Right.
night, we lost contact
Hmm.
with everybody.
Did that worry you that you lost
No.
contact? and everything?
Nobody knew how to find us anyway.
Oh.
The only thing they told us is, well, you're in civilian clothes and it's war. If you're captured as a spy and they can shoot you.
Oh,
No,
and that didn't worry you at all? No.
that wasn't, that's just saying that we always said. Because,
That's what you told each other?
yeah.
Yeah. Did you keep any type of personal diary or record of when you were in service?
Easter Island, I did because at that time, wasn't cassette tapes, but little reels, miniature reel-to-reel
Right.
tapes were
Uh-huh.
big.
Mhm.
So I did record a lot of times rather than write a letter home. I would record the letter,
Huh.
and sometimes I would record that during in the 2-week period waiting for the mail.
Okay,
So I've kept those, or mom and dad kept them and gave them to me. So there are some accounts on there.
do you ever have them transcribed or
No, I never
done
did.
anything
Never
else to
did.
them?
I should do something digitally, I guess.
Well, you should, because technology's changing
Yeah.
like every 3 to 5 years, and before you know it, some of those
Yeah.
might start to
They
disintegrate.
may have already, I don't know, because I don't know where they've been.
Huh.
Probably been in the attic for
Yeah,
years and years.
where moms keep things.
Yeah, yeah. And pictures too. I don't really have a lot of
Pictures.
good pictures. Because at that time, I think I did buy a 35 millimeter camera at that time. Otherwise, it was Kodak Instamatic.
Right, oh, and
And
those are,
I had them transferred to slides, which came into being after that. That was a big thing. And now I've digitized them. Actually, I got them on my phone, but they're not real good quality.
Well, one of the things the digital archives can do is you can put in some pictures if you want to into your record and such too. So we might think about
One
that.
picture I missed that I really wish I would have gotten was our fire department down on Easter Island. It was a wheelbarrow with a garden hose reel clamped to it.
Oh my, that would have been something.
Sitting next to a water fountain.
Oh my goodness, that would have been something for the archives and everything
yeah,
too.
Yeah, I didn't, at the time I never thought, thinking it was always sitting there every day. I just never thought about it.
Yeah.
Now I wish I would have.
Yeah.
Just trying to explain that.
Were there any memorable experiences when you were down there on Easter Island or any of the other bases that you served on?
Nothing really, that would stand out other than day to day. We interacted with the natives a lot. Got to know them. They would carve statues out of wood, and they didn't have any clothes, so my parents would ship clothes down, used clothes, old clothes. I would trade those clothes for statues, and so.
So you have some of those, or your
Yeah,
parents
I
do,
have
and
quite a
stuff
few
like
of
that?
those. Yeah.
What kind of wood did they use? You know?
Anything they could find.
Anything?
Yeah, I've got one that was made out of a 2x4 that they found laying around.
Really?
And the rest of it is just, there's not a lot of wood out there, so they pick up anything they could find.
Anything washes ashore and such?
Well, not really wash ashore, that doesn't make it that far.
Doesn't make it that far.
Well, 1,100 miles.
Yeah, well.
Trade winds come from the west, so Tahiti would be there, Pitcairn Islands would be the closest that any wood would come.
So they have palm trees and such
No,
like that?
not
No
too
palm
much. They
trees?
got a few banana trees. Not a lot of trees. There used to be apparently, but through the history of what went on the island, the trees disappeared, as did the people. Most of them were gathered up for slave trade in the Peruvian salt mines and never returned. And then Easter Island kind of became Chile's answer to taking care of lepers.
Oh.
They'd ship them out there, had a priest out there and a nun that would kind of take care of them. There were a few that had the disease. A lot of them were sort of cured, but I met a lot of those people.
Did you have anything with you for good luck or special meaning for you or anything from home?
Nothing to think of.
No? Nothing? Okay. Did you have plenty of supplies? You said they were running out of food when you first got there?
We didn't. We basically ran out.
You ran out?
At one period, I remember that all we had left was chicken and beef. So we'd have chicken for dinner and beef for supper. The next day we'd have beef for dinner and chicken for supper. Cook tried to come up with some different ways, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Tried one recipe that he'll never do again.
Nobody liked that?
No. So,
what about your other supplies? Your radio equipment and everything, you have enough that you needed?
They maintained it. We had a radio maintenance operator out there, so they maintained it, and they didn't get used that much. So really nothing that that big in that. We had a few vehicles that took us to work every day. We had a motor pool sergeant, so I assume he had his parts.
Yeah.
Sure, but yeah, mostly the food, commissary. You'd have rations for pop, because we didn't have pop usually. No cigarettes, which I didn't smoke, that didn't bother me. But your commissary was basically wasn't even as big as this room, and just had nothing. I mean, you didn't need anything. So
yeah.
As long as you ate, that was the main thing.
Yeah. What did you do in your off time while you were serving on the Easter Island?
Nothing.
Nothing? Write a letter maybe, or?
Not usually.
No?
Usually I did those tapes, so every once in a while I'd record what I did that week or something ahead of time, but not a lot. There were two. The majority of the island is made up of rough shoreline, volcanic shoreline. There were two beaches that had sand on them on the island, but they were clear across the other side, so we very seldom ever got there. I think I was there twice, maybe to one of them, because we'd never get a vehicle to go.
Right.
You could have walked, I guess, but the island is like 14 miles at its longest apex and 7 miles wide. And you walked everywhere. I mean, we walked downtown all the time.
Long hike to go to the beach.
Well, yeah. We'd go downtown all the time, visit, the natives down there. In invite you in for supper or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Which, keep in mind, they had no refrigeration.
Right, right.
The ones that lived along the shore, they would usually fish. They would
Mhm.
trade for people that inside that lived a little bit further in. They'd have some gardens, you'd have some vegetables and stuff. We had to buy potatoes from one of the natives once because we ran out of potatoes and
Yeah.
vegetables.
I wondered
But,
if they have vegetables.
Nothing that they could supply that much because
Yeah,
they were short
yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Now, they had the wild cattle and horses living on the island, so that every once in a while the neighborhood would get together and butcher a cow.
mm-hmm.
And,
Have a feast.
no, yeah, and they had to do it right away because there was no refrigeration.
That's true.
And they didn't care. They'd just throw it on the back of their horse and run off with it, or
Yeah.
drag it on the ground and take it
Yeah.
home, hang it
Yeah.
up, and eat it. So if we'd go down there, we would make sure, they usually, at one time I know we had fish, and they wanted us to stay for supper, so you almost had to, otherwise
Mhm.
you'd bury, insult them.
Yes.
And they just cook it on a hot rock next to the
Mhm.
fire. And they'd ask if I wanted to eat it. I said, no, just leave it on there a little longer. I'd let it get charred good,
Yeah,
then I'd
yeah.
eat it, because it was never cleaned or
Yeah.
refrigerated, so.
Did you go on
Lived through
leave when you were from Easter
No,
Island? You
no.
stayed there
Yeah.
the whole time?
Stayed
and
there the whole time,
everything, too?
yeah, there was no R&R. At that time, Vietnam was going, they always did an R&R to somewhere, Australia or somewhere like
Right.
that. We had nothing like that, no, couldn't go anywhere.
Hmm.
They couldn't spare you because of the manpower shortage, and there's no place to go. 'Cause the only place they went back to was Santiago, Chile, or Panama,
Okay.
and it was an 8-hour flight to each stop.
Mhm.
Uh,
Did you pull any pranks on your other fellow employees or any humorous jokes? Was there a jokester in the bunch?
No,
You said the
really.
medic came and threw the hand grenades by the
Yeah,
heart doctor.
that was just his
That was just his
everyday
thing, huh?
thing, everyday thing, to reassure you that he was there.
He was doing his job, huh?
Yeah. No, mostly an initiation when you first got there,
Initiation, like hazing and everything?
basically.
Oh, my goodness.
Like I said, well, we had, at that time, when I first got down there, we had no bar of our own or no American beer.
Uh-huh.
So the only thing you could get down there was vino wine and cognac. Vino was $1 a bottle, cognac was $4 a bottle.
Mhm.
And so when you first got down there, they would usually feed you some cognac. And at that time, all we had was root beer. So I got drunk on root beer and cognac.
Root beer and cognac. Wow.
I don't like root beer to this day.
I can imagine.
Except A&W. A&W is okay. This was just generic. So
Yeah.
they'd tell some stories on you while you was
Mhm.
down there. So that's
With
about
the
it.
communications, did you get music? Could you get
No.
music on your radios or
No,
anything?
no.
You could
Sometimes
hear broadcasts.
sometimes at the evening, late at night, when we lose communication with everybody else, we could get Radio Australia a little
Okay.
bit. Not very good or not very often, but as Radio Australia came in a little bit. And that was just for us and our 2 people, working in the comm
Yeah,
center. It was the only
yeah.
2 could benefit from that because that's the only place we had a radio that would pick
Okay.
anything up. We had, they'd try and bring some movies down, but they were all old magazines that we had been around there for months and months. So you'd read the same magazine over and over. Down there was this the old joke about somebody would say a page number out of a magazine, say, look, magazine page 35, and
And
everybody
they know what
start
you're
laughing.
talking about?
Yeah, everybody start laughing.
Didn't even have to say what
No,
it was. They
because
just
it
knew
was
what
just
was going
one
on.
joke was on that page.
Oh
Whatever,
my
so,
goodness. So you didn't have any, did you bring any books with you or anything? Or
no,
just a few magazines?
just
along
the
there?
magazines that they had down there. We had a pool table, played pool
Oh, well, that's good.
occasionally.
So you had a pool table and
Yeah,
watched
old
the ocean.
magazine. Yeah, lots of view of the ocean. Yeah, yeah.
Do you recall the day your service ended? How that
Yep.
day went? Okay.
Routine working and said bye and left.
You got a letter or
No.
call or?
At that time, when I got back from Easter Island, typically at that time, if you had less than 6 months to serve, you just automatically got a discharge. They let you out early because it wasn't worth them to send you somewhere for 4 or 5 months
Right.
and then let you go. But at that time, I still had almost a year left. And when I was in Phoenix, in Luke Air Force Base, and that's another story too. But they finally came down. This was in '69 or '68, and then early '69. Vietnam was sort of winding down.
Mhm.
So they weren't calling up as many troops as they had earlier when I went in. So they said, if you're not going to re-enlist, we just will let you out because we have an excess of troops. Didn't really know what to do with them all anymore. So I did get out then early I got out January 31st of 69, and I wasn't really supposed to get out till September of 69. So I did get out early. But when I left Easter Island was considered a mobile detachment assignment. So when I got back, I was assigned to a mobile outfit in Arizona and stationed on Luke. We had no duties whatsoever with Luke Air Force Base. We were our own little mobile outfit. And again, they stuck me in a B-2 shelter out between we had to go around the end of the runway. We were stuck between the firing range and the base dump. Is where our area was.
Very picturesque.
Yeah, and so another good view. That's where we worked. Basically, we had to report for duty at 7 o'clock in the morning. At 7:02, we were pretty much free to go. We'd always sign out to the library.
Yeah.
Never go there, but signed out to the library. Then you were always on call. So usually they'd have. First I had right after I got there, they had a call. You could call 3 o'clock in the morning and say, report to base, we're going to ship out. So you had to load all the trucks. We had everything crated up that you might need anywhere in the world. We could go anywhere. And we would go out to Gila Bend Desert and camp out there. We set up our tents and set up our communications. Communications at that time was in a metal box in the back of a deuce-and-a-half truck.
Okay.
And we were support for a forward radar unit. So another truck had the radar attached to the top of its truck. And we'd go out there and set everything up, get communications back to the base, say, okay, come back home. So then for a few days you'd have to repack all your boxes because you had boxes that have so many rolls of toilet paper, so many light bulbs, so many of this and so many of that. So then you'd rearrange that and have that all ready to go and band it so it'd be, nobody could take anything out of it. And ready for the next time. And we almost got sent to Korea because Korea flared up at that time. And luckily it was at the end of the fiscal year and they didn't have enough money to send us. This is the rumor I got. So from that, I decided that wasn't a good place to be because at that time, without satellite and the radar that they had, forward radar outfit was usually in front of the front lines watching for enemy aircraft, and their life expectancy wasn't all that great. So
that's true.
It enforced my not re-enlisting.
So when you were discharged and went home to your family and everything, what was that like?
I was fortunate. At that time, you hear a lot of stories about people, yelling at them and baby colors and all this and that. I'm fortunate from a small town that didn't occur because there were several other people from our town that went at the same time. And so you were related to probably 95% of the people in town. And so you were welcomed home, very warmly. I mean, we had nothing, disturbing about, getting home or where you served or anything.
Did they have a party or a gathering for you? You remember your mom and dad did something or?
That I remember. No.
Quite different these days, huh? Everybody has a big party and everything too.
Just welcome home, came home and.
You said you were a farmer. Did you resume being a farmer when you returned home or did you pursue a career?
I was a farmer all my life. Helped my dad farm forever and I had a lot of milk cows. When I went into service, Dad decided that was a good time to sell all the milk cows.
Very labor intensive.
I went around help and half of them were mine anyway. So, after I got out, I I looked into communications, teletype operator, found out that it was not a civilian job that was worthwhile. The only place that anybody had them at that time was airports and very small demand. So I went to business college, became an accountant, and I worked as an accountant for a telephone company in Rantoul for 21 years.
Okay.
And they decided they didn't need their office in Rantoul any longer and had moved to Ohio if I wanted a job. So I said, nope, I was farming at that time. So I said, no, I can't move. So.
Did you use the GI Bill to go to school and everything?
I got, I think it was $75 a month It either paid my rent or my school tuition, whichever I wanted to use. I think they were both about the same.
Okay.
I lived in a old house that somebody converted to an apartment.
Yeah.
Had two rooms, kitchen and a bedroom.
Probably with no view like in the Army, huh?
I had a view, yeah. I had
Better
a view of the highway out front. That's
Yeah.
what I like to see. That roof leaked and everything else, but it was cheap. It's all I
Yeah.
could afford.
Did you make any close friendships while you were in the service?
One of them has stuck pretty much. I've not seen him. We used to exchange Christmas cards, and that's kind of dwindled down now too. But one guy from Missouri, I still know.
Did you ever try to, you say Christmas cards occasionally?
Yeah, we keep saying, well, we got to get together one of these years, and it just never happens.
Huh.
One of these years it will.
Well, one of these years you can get on the internet and Skype him.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
do that
probably
and
could.
everything
Probably
too.
could, because he was in the accounting field also, so
Oh,
he's retired now.
that would be interesting
He's
conversation
yeah.
and everything too,
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah, he was from a small town also in Missouri,
Yeah.
so he didn't. He got the same welcome I did. So
Well,
we
that's good.
never really experienced that. You know, that I know it was a big thing at that time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people had some bad experiences.
Mhm.
But fortunately, from a small farming community
They
and all the
supported you
relation,
and,
yeah, it was everybody supported you and welcomed you home.
that's good.
Like I said, there's a number of other cousins that were in
Right.
the service at the same time
Right.
came home. So
And do you attend reunions? I see.
no.
No?
Air Force
Okay.
is different than like a ship's reunion or
Okay.
a company's reunion. Because in Air Force, you're pretty much on your own. I mean,
Mhm.
you get your own assignment. You
Mhm.
don't get an assignment as a group of
Okay.
people. So who I was with in California, once I left California, like I say, they went to Greenland, Turkey, and everywhere else in the
Mhm.
world. So you just kind of lose that contact with them. So you only have contact with the people that are on your base or with you at that time.
Mhm.
And different people get orders at different times. So you may, have somebody that's been there for a month. You might have somebody that's been there for a year and he's just
Mhm.
ready to ship out. So you don't really get the group working together for your entire service time. So
Mhm.
so the Air Force in that respect, at the time I was in, really didn't encourage reunions, I guess, in that respect, because your friendships changed every place you went.
What about veterans organizations? What veterans organizations are you in now?
I belong to the American Legion.
Mhm.
Since I was not in Southeast Asia at the time, I don't qualify for VFW. I wasn't wounded, so I don't belong to the disabled veterans or the Purple Heart. But I am currently a state commander for the American Legion for the
Excellent.
state.
Excellent.
Been with the Legion for 42 years,
Mhm.
43 years, something like that.
And what kind of activities do you do for your association?
As last year as senior vice commander and this year as commander, it entails a lot of travel. Last year, I think I traveled like 35,000 miles through.
Wow.
Never hardly left the state of Illinois.
Without leaving Illinois?
Yeah, pretty much. We go out to Washington, D.C. every February in the spring
Mhm.
and lobby for veterans' rights
Mhm.
with Congress. Everybody from all over this country comes in.
Mhm.
That's pretty much and we go to Indianapolis for meetings occasionally because that's our national headquarters.
Mhm.
The national convention, we use the national convention sites as our vacation
Mhm.
every years. Usually it's spread out throughout the country, different
Mhm.
places.
Where was it this year?
Fortunately, this year was in Indianapolis.
Well, that's a nice town.
Yeah, we've been there a number of times. My
Yeah.
sister's sister lives over there, so we've been to Indianapolis a number of times.
Well,
Plus,
good.
we go over there for trips. But next year it's in Houston, Texas.
It's another nice
So
town.
we
I've been there
we
too.
plan they got them for 5 years out, so we know where we're going for
Well, that's
vacation for
nice.
5 years.
That's nice.
2005 they went to Hawaii.
Oh, well,
That
that's
was
even
nice.
better.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That's
We spent
even
a little
better.
extra time there.
How has your service and experiences affected your life, do you think?
I think it's changed a bunch. I'm one that I think that every young adult should go in the service. At the time I went, I mean, before that I probably wouldn't have said that because I was working as an auto mechanic after I got out of high school, and I got my notice to go to Chicago for a physical. At that time, we still had draft boards.
I was gonna say you were drafted,
each
yeah.
county had their own draft board.
Yeah.
And I got my notice to go to Chicago for my physical. I came back from there. I called the draft board in Waseca in my county, asked them where I was at on the list to go
Yeah.
deploy. They said the next bus that leaves from Iroquois County, you're on it.
Mhm.
And so then I had a decision whether I wanted to go in the Army. I was an auto mechanic at that time, and I really didn't want to be a motor pool person in the Army. And the chances of Army going to Vietnam are much greater. So I contacted the Air Force recruiter, and he stuck me in the head of the line. I actually got my draft notice to report to the Army while I was sitting in basic training for the Air Force. And I don't know if Dad did or the recruiter, I'm not sure, had to tell the Army, says, you're too late.
Yeah.
But so it was that close to going in the Army versus the Air Force.
So would you think your experiences were positive on your life, or?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you realize you get to travel around like a country boy, you know, that's probably not going anywhere, and you go see the world. You learn discipline. You learn to get along with people, as well as travel. So it's a rewarding experience. Plus, well, and especially with the job I'm in now with the American Legion, I've talked to a lot of veterans. I hear a lot of stories of what people went through to fight for our freedoms, keep us free.
Right.
A lot of things that they did that they didn't really have to do, but they just did them because they thought it was the right thing to do for the country.
Right.
I think as civilians, you don't learn that as readily, probably. I mean, I'm sure some of them do, some people do, but as a general practice, I don't think they do. I think you learn that. You learn to get along with different people. You see different people, all walks of life, get them together, working.
That leads right into my next question. Did your military experience influence your thinking about the war or military in general?
Yeah, well, again, from a small town and having a lot of relatives or going through, knowing people that went through World War II and Korea, you kind of get an idea of what, how the importance of military and what they did, even not being in military, but going into service, yeah, you realize what people were sacrificing for you, what they did.
Is there anything else you want to add? We've had a good talk here today.
Probably it's more I could think of, but I won't until I'm out the door.
Well, that's okay. You can always come back. We'll be glad to do it again and everything too. Any other experiences or anything else? Very interesting.
That covers the high points, I think.
Okay.
I'm sure there's a lot of other things that happened. There's places you go that you don't really, at the time, don't like. But I think, the best advice would be have your mind set that you're going to like where you're going, regardless, and get the best out of wherever you're at.
Make the best of what you're doing there.
You can't change it.
Right.
But I liked everywhere I went. Travis was interesting because you were close to San Francisco, Reno, Lake Tahoe, so you could get out in those places. We had a lake there that we went water skiing on.
Very good.
I can't swim. I'm afraid of water, but they got me up on skis.
But you water skiing.
I was water skiing.
Good.
I was out in the middle of the lake and they ran out of gas and sun
then
went
you go
down. And they couldn't even come back and get me.
Yeah.
Luckily, the life jackets supported me.
Well, good.
So a lot of life experiences like that. I would never have, if I would have stayed in Buckley and be a mechanic, that's probably where I'd still be now. Just doing the same thing over and over. So services really, open your eyes to what's going on in the world.
Good.
You realize, and being involved in what I was, Cold War going on, everybody was concentrating on Vietnam.
Right.
You had to realize then that there were other things going on in the world at the same time. And the U.S. was strong enough to know it and have troops and stuff ready in case something else happened. They didn't concentrate just on Vietnam. Korea, like I say, was still going on. And an interesting fact I just learned not too long ago was the Korean War technically is still going on. They signed an armistice, but they never did sign a treaty. So there is no treaty with Korea, North and South. So.
Well, you've been a wonderful guest today to be interviewed. I'm going to stop the interview now.